All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and highly specific architectural blueprint for human survival. But listen, we aren't talking about physical concrete and steel bunkers here. We're looking at a completely invisible architecture, detailed in the ancient prophetic texts of the Bhavishya Malika. We're going to explore exactly how this intricate system is supposedly designed to preserve life during a period of massive global upheaval, and how it literally maps out the dawn of a brand new age. So much wind will blow that even big buildings and mountains will float in the sky. The ocean will repeatedly come to the shore and destroy human civilization. The devotees will be protected. Now, to really grasp this blueprint, we have to start with the sheer scale of the elemental failure those texts describe. According to the Bhavishya Malika, we aren't just looking at minor climate disruptions. We're looking at a predicted era where the fundamental elements of the earth, wind, water, earth, and fire, turn completely hostile. But notice that crucial, definitive promise at the very end of the quote. The devotees will be protected. So how exactly does that work? That is what we're about to uncover. Section 1. The Twilight of the Age. The texts suggest that we are living right now in what is called the Yuga Sandhya. You can think of this as a twilight transition period. It's the bridge between the darkness of our current age, the Kali Yuga, and the coming dawn of the Satya Yuga, which translates to the age of truth. And the Bhavishya Malika treats this Yuga Sandhya not just as some vague folklore, but as a definitive impending planetary shift. It describes it as a highly volatile period marked by intense destruction, basically serving as a massive cosmic reset button before the new era can finally begin. And the Malika actually records a highly specific sequence of global catastrophes that define this twilight period. We're talking about the emergence of 64 types of new diseases between the years 2025 and 2032. The texts also outline an unprecedented event of 7 continuous days and nights of total pitch-black darkness. They describe asteroids falling from space and plunging into the oceans, which supposedly triggers global sea levels to rise by an astonishing 1,200 to 2,000 feet. Just to put that into perspective, that would completely submerge almost every coastal city on Earth. And layered right on top of those natural disasters is the devastating use of nuclear weapons in a third world war. It's essentially the systematic dismantling of the old world's infrastructure. Section 2, 16 spiritual safe zones. So 16, that specific number is presented as a crucial figure for the future of humanity within these texts. This represents the exact count of the Mandals. According to the prophecies, these are divinely protected safe zones that are actively being formed across the globe as we speak. Now, the key takeaway here is that these 16 mandals serve as an invisible architecture. Like I said earlier, they aren't physical fortresses. They are literal spiritual safe zones where 330 million, or 33 crore, devotees of Lord Kalki will supposedly be gathered. The scripture outlines that when the physical world starts to fracture and the elements rebel, this invisible network will act as an impenetrable shield to anchor and preserve humanity. The contrast the texts paint between the unprotected world and the highly structured defense mechanism of the Mandals is just staggering. Outside, humanity supposedly faces complete elemental destruction, a terrifying 7 days of global famine. During that period of darkness, those 2,000-foot floods and nuclear fallout. But inside, the Bhavishya Malika claims there will be absolute divine protection by Lord Kalki himself. It says that even when the outside world is starving, food will actually be provided to these safe zones through divine mediums, and the devotees inside will be granted a state beyond death so they can inherit the new world. Section 3. Mapping the Divine Architecture. What's really fascinating here is how the Bhavishya Malika distributes these zones geographically with extreme precision. It literally names the exact regions. You have the Nilachal Mandal in Odisha, the Ujjaini Mandal covering Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, the Kamakya Mandal over in Assam, and the massive Rameshwar Mandal protecting the southern states of India. But it also explicitly includes an Africa Mandal, and that's a real game changer because it indicates the Malika's scope isn't just local, it's entirely global, framing this as a universal rescue operation. So while the epicenter of this spiritual architecture is firmly rooted in India with 15 specific zones, the scripture clearly accounts for devotees worldwide. That dedicated Africa Mandal acts as the massive hub for the entire international community. It means whether you're tuning in from Singapore, America, Europe, or Africa, the Bhavishya Malika explains that any devotee anywhere in the world can connect to and be protected by one of these 16 global nodes. Furthermore, the texts describe this not as some chaotic free-for-all, but as a highly organized operational hierarchy. Each of the 16 main mandals is overseen by a specific sardar or commander. These 16 hubs act as the primary nodes of what is called the Sudharma Mahasangh. Beneath those main offices, smaller district and village level zones are reportedly forming right now, creating this vast interconnected web. And at the very top of it all, this entire invisible architecture is said to be governed directly by Lord Kalki and 33 crore deities. It's a logistical infrastructure specifically designed to seamlessly manage the preservation of millions of lives. Okay, you're probably wondering, how does someone actually step inside this invisible architecture? According to the Bhavishya Malika, entry requires strict adherence to very specific, purifying daily protocols. It's not about paying an entry fee. It's about fundamentally shifting your consciousness. First, performing the Sandhya. These are daily spiritual prayers done 3 times a day. Second, strictly following the rules of Sanatana Dharma, which explicitly means adopting a vegetarian diet, completely renouncing alcohol and intoxicants, and living a life of peace. And third, actively connecting with your regional mandal. The scripture presents these actions as the literal keys to unlocking the safe zones. Section 4. Preservers of the prophecy. Now, the monumental task of translating and preserving these highly sensitive historical dossiers for the modern world is being led by Pandit Dr. Sri Kashinath Mishra. He is an eminent scholar of the Jagannath Sanskriti and the Bhavishya Malika Purana. Serving as the primary researcher and preserver of this ancient lineage, he has literally spent decades systematically translating these deeply coded odious scriptures into Hindi, English, and other global languages, making sure these prophecies are accessible to all of us worldwide. And under his scholarly and spiritual guidance, the Biswa Sanatana Dharma Seva Trust, which is also known as the Sudharma Mahasangh, is actively spearheading this global mission. They are executing a massive logistical undertaking aimed at awakening the faithful and getting them organized into these 16 mandals before the Yuga Sandhya is predicted to reach its destructive peak. It's absolutely critical to understand this organization's role here. They aren't claiming to invent these concepts. They view themselves purely as the loyal custodians of the text. Their whole aim is to present the authentic scripture exactly as the great seers recorded it centuries ago, offering the precise survival framework dictated by the texts themselves. Section 5, the Satya Yuga 2032. The Malika leaves absolutely no room for ambiguity when it comes to the timeline. It boldly states that the devastating elemental shifts and global conflicts commence their serious escalation in 2025. This leads directly into the darkest phase of the Yuga Sandhya, which culminates in those 7 days of total darkness and elemental failure. But the text emphasizes that this chaos has a hard deadline. In the year 2032, the transition supposedly ends, and the Satya Yuga, the age of truth, officially arrives on Earth. Once the architecture of the 16 mandals fulfills its protective purpose, the surviving devotees are said to step out into a completely renewed heavenly Earth. And the Malika describes a breathtaking landscape for 2032. The new global capital is set to be established in Jaipur, Odisha. Devotees supposedly won't even live in ordinary houses. The texts say divine dwellings will be constructed by the celestial architect Vishwakarma himself. All human scarcity is predicted to be completely eradicated, with resources provided directly by the Lord. The world will no longer be divided by borders, but united as one single family under the 5-colored Panchrangi flag of Sanatana Dharma. And global governance, that will be replaced by the Sudharma Sabha, a divine assembly. So, this explainer has laid out the precise mechanics of the Bhavishya Malika's prophecies. According to these texts, the timeline to 2032 is rapidly approaching, and the 16 mandals are actively forming right now. Whether you view this as an inevitable destiny or as ancient mythology, the texts leave us with a deeply provocative question. When the metaphorical or literal storm finally hits, where will you stand?